What's going on? What's going on, team? Welcome back to another week. Welcome back to another weekly stock talk. My name is Xander with Fates Trading Academy. And today what we're gonna be doing is hopping into another stock talk where we discuss opportunities for not just this week, but for potentially the entire month. We do this every single week, every single Monday night. So we call this Money Monday. We also talk about the overall market. We talk about the S&P 500. We talk about the SPY, where they're at from a technical standpoint. And then, like I said, we talk about the opportunities that we're paying attention to. So let's go ahead and jump right on into it. The first thing that we take a look at is going to be the SPY, the S&P 500. So as you guys can see, since last week, we ended up seeing quite a recovery in just Monday's open session, right? The week prior, we actually talked about the market continuing to recover if we continue to hold above the EMA and hold above this 450 support, which is exactly what we ended up seeing. We ended up seeing pulling up to the upside. We became overbought, and then we ended up having a bit of a correction. And this is definitely something we needed to see. We needed to see a correction for us to be able to see a continuation as the recovery continues to happen. We can't just see something continue to rise and rise and rise and rise without a correction. So this correction that we saw is very healthy. It's very normal. And now the situation that we're currently in is, let's go ahead and zoom into these last few days. What we ended up seeing is we saw that pullback. We pulled back down to this yellow line, which also lined up here with this 450 level. We saw this candlestick reversal pattern, and then we ended up starting to see a push up to the upside here on Monday. So what we want to see from here on out is we want to see a hold above this 455 level. So at this particular moment, we do see the RSI starting to curve back down a little bit to the downside. So we might go back into a retest for that 450 level or just a slight retest of this 455 level. In either case, it's not going to be too big of a deal, but the tech market and the overall market is going to be affected by this if we do see this pullback happen. So just be prepared for that. And in the opportunities that we do talk about, be prepared to see a reflection of that happen in those stocks as well. So either way, the worst case scenario that I see happening in the near term is just a pullback to retest these levels. And that would just add more confirmation before we see a continuation and a reversal continuing to the upside. That's the worst case scenario. The best case scenario is we stay above this baby blue line, which is the EMA. This is the 13 EMA here on the 4-hour chart. We end up coming back down, testing it, and continuing to push up tomorrow. So tomorrow is basically going to tell us whether we're going to see a pullback to retest these levels or if we're just going to see a continuation to the upside. Either way, we're going to be looking for this 460 level to act as a resistance on the way up. Either way, right? Whether we retest or we don't retest, we're going to be looking at this level as a potential resistance once we're coming back up to the upside. The Nasdaq's basically showing the same thing, just at different price points and different levels. So right over here, we're seeing in essence the same setup, right? We're not super overbought, but we're not super oversold. We saw that push up to the upside, and we're basically sitting at this level just like we were on the SPY, right? So once again, if we do see a pullback, we're going to see a pullback happen most likely back to these levels down here, which we saw previously. And so I wouldn't be surprised to see that pullback happen, right? To see that resistance play out and then pull back down, find support again, and then potentially continue to push to the upside. So either way, the setup is technically the same in both. So I mostly pay attention to the SPY just because the stocks I trade with, the stocks that I trade technically, or the stocks that I trade tend to align closer to the S&P 500, which is reflected in the SPY chart a little closer. So I pay attention to this. I always have this up on my screens when I'm trading, and I'm paying attention to what's going on with the overall market by watching SPY. So I would advise that you guys do the same, whether you guys are trading, swing trading, or just looking for good opportunities. The SPY is definitely going to tell you if it is a good buy for that particular stock at that particular time. So just pay attention to that as well. So that's what's going on with the S&P 500 and the Nasdaq. Something that we did talk about a couple of weeks ago, and I did want to bring this up once again for those of you guys that didn't watch that video, or you guys might have missed it. What we tend to trade is inverse ETFs as well. So when we're looking at the SPY, right, we're seeing this push to the upside, pull back, and then we're starting to reverse back up to the upside, potentially either testing this previous 460 resistance or coming back down to this 450 support. So something that you can trade is TQQQ, which in essence is resembling the SPY action, right? So this push to the upside, pull back, and we're heading back up to retest that previous high or come back down to support and retest that support. So TQQQ follows along with the SPY. So if you see SPY pushing up to the upside, TQQQ is going to continue to push up to the upside. On the other hand, if you're looking at SQQQ, it's going to be the inverse, right? So if SPY is pushing up, this is going to be pushing down. If the SPY is pushing down, SQQQ is going to be pushing up, right? So when we saw SPY recovering, we saw SQQQ dropping, right? At the same time, if we go back to that TQQQ chart that follows SPY, you can see that at that same time, we saw TQQQ pushing up to the upside. So if you guys want to see, or if you guys wanted to know how to play both ends without having to get too complicated as to, you know, how do I short and how do I do this? How do I do that? You can actually trade these inverse ETFs, right? So that's just something to consider and keep in mind. The basics is if SPY is pushing up, TQQQ is going to be pushing up. If SPY is pushing down, SQQQ is going to be pushing up. If you guys do want to learn a little bit more about that and how we use the strategies that we teach in the academy to trade this and be a little bit more educated as to what direction and what moves that you guys should be making, when you guys should be making entries and exits, you guys can either DM me in the comments and ask to connect. You can also DM me on Instagram. I have that linked in the bio as well, and we can get you going within the academy. That way you can get a little bit more educated as to the way you should be trading certain either ETFs or certain stocks and the strategies and techniques that we use. So that's just something that you guys should know and consider when you guys are trading either the overall market or any other stocks. And if you guys wanted to play both ends, the two ETFs that I just mentioned, they're inverse, so you can play both sides no matter what's going on, as long as you're paying attention. The stocks that we want to talk about, the first one that's on the list is going to be Aapl, AAPL. So this one here, this one's trading very similar to the SPY, right? So that's why I mentioned that I do pay attention to the S&P 500, and I always have that up, is because if the SPY was, when the SPY was recovering, Aapl was recovering. We saw the SPY pull back, Aapl pulled back. We saw the SPY push back up. We saw SPY pushing back up. So the reason this one's attractive is it's very similar to the S&P 500 and the SPY. The way we're going to be looking at it, right, is the same. In essence, the same thing, right? If SPY continues to push up, we're going to be looking for a long play. If SPY begins to pull back, we're going to let this pull back a little bit. And worst case scenario, I would say, is going to pull back to about probably 167, just to retest that 180-day simple moving average. But like I said, it really just depends on what SPY is going to be doing, and this is going to follow very closely. If you remember the chart that I showed you with the SPY and TQQQ, you can see that this is very, very similar to that same chart, just because it trades very similarly, right? So the reason I got my eye on this one is because we got the MACD signaling a potential reversal to the upside, which is indicating that we might potentially see a continuation play, meaning that from here on out, the next level that I'd be looking at is going to be 183. So from current price points to that 183 mark, we have a profit potential of approximately 3.44%. And that's just on the light side, right? If we do continue to see the overall market pushing to the upside, obviously Apple's going to have more upside than 3.44%, but this is a very strong, safe play that you guys can consider and watch not only throughout this week, but throughout all of April, because I'm assuming that when the overall market is going to continue to recover, the stock is also going to continue to recover with it. So just a stock to add to your watch list and keep an eye on throughout this week and throughout the rest of April. The next one that we're going to be looking at is going to be BAC. So this is where things are going to start getting interesting. BAC is a financial stock, right? It's a bank. It's a bank stock. And so these are starting to get very interesting. I have a couple of these on today's watch list and on this list. And the reason these are interesting is they're not super oversold. I wouldn't necessarily say. I mean, they are based on the RSI, but they're not necessarily at the support that we would want to see it at, right? So this previous support at 38.21, that approximate level, we're not currently there yet. We're at 40 basically. So we're not that far away either, though. I would say we're only like $2 or $3 away. But so the reason this one caught my eye is we're very oversold. The MACD is starting to curve to the upside, and we're basically at this -2 standard deviation line. If you guys don't know standard deviations, again, DM me, contact me, and you guys can learn a little bit more about that through the academy. We teach this throughout the entire academy. We answer all the questions, but in essence, these standard deviations, you can look this up. Price action stays at certain levels of standard deviation, whether it's +1, +2, +3, or -1, -2, -3, right? The lower that number, the further away it is from this mean, which is this yellow line, the less probability is that it's going to stay at that point, right? So the price action tends to always return to the mean and then either go over it or go under it, and then react and then come back and go back and forth. That's why we see this up and down action always going on within any stock. In essence, we're basically at this -2 standard deviation, meaning that the probability is increasing for us to see a reversal. We're oversold. The MACD is starting to turn around to the upside, and we have a lot of big players taking bullish stances on this particular stock on BAC. And I'm assuming this is going to reflect throughout all of the bank stocks that we're going to look at. So make sure that you guys are aware of this. I do anticipate that we're going to begin to see a reversal, and at the very least, a push back up to this 180-day simple moving average, which is about 7.57%, if not higher. That's just going to be that first level that we're going to be paying attention to. I do anticipate we're going to see a full recovery up to $50. I wouldn't say it's going to be this week, but definitely in the near future, in my opinion, I see that we're potentially going to see a recovery to those levels. So that's why I'm paying attention to BAC. While we're talking about bank stocks, I'm going to talk about the other ones as well. That way you can see the similarity between all of them. USB is going to be the next one. The charts are going to be very, very similar, right? So this one, we had a pullback just basically to that same level that we had our support at, which is also another confirmation that, hey, that's why bank stocks are becoming very interesting to me, is because we saw the support here previously. And then we ended up actually pulling back to the support on this particular name as well. Same setup, super oversold on the RSI, and the MACD is also indicating potential reversal right here. And so because we're at this level and because we have these indicators letting us know that we're potentially going to start seeing a reversal, this is why this one I find interesting. The next, just to show you guys the profit potential here from current price points, just to recover to that previous high, not even all-time highs, previous high, we're looking at about 10.5%. To those all-time highs, we're looking at about 19.57, almost 20% profit potential. And that's just on USB. So the next one, also a bank stock, is going to be BK. Very similar chart, very similar setup, right? A pullback happened. We ended up trading within this consolidation channel. And then now we're starting to see that we're super oversold. MACD is starting to indicate a potential reversal right here. We are at a strong support that we have validated multiple times. And so we're potentially going to start seeing a push to the upside. At the very least, the first level we're paying attention to is going to be this 52.83 level. That's about 7.58%. If we do see a recovery to a previous high, that general area that we were in before we saw all this action, even to the bottom of that, we're looking at about 14.99%. So that's why I find this one attractive. That's why I'm paying attention to this one. The setup is there. And as soon as we see a break above that EMA, that's when we're going to be looking to make those entries. So those are the bank stocks that I'm paying attention to throughout this week and into April. The rest of the stocks that we're going to be talking about is going to be Facebook. This one we've talked about. You guys can go back on the channel to a couple of weeks back, actually. And I've been talking about this stock. I've been talking about Facebook for some time now, a couple of weeks now. I've been talking about it ever since we dropped and we were at 184 in that general area. And I was indicating, because of the same reasons that we, basically because of technical analysis is why we were looking at it. The setup was there. And so that's why I brought it up. And this has panned out very, very well. And it's just becoming stronger and stronger for us, right? So from the point that we started talking about it till about right now, we've already gained 24.7%. Just over the last couple of weeks that I started bringing this up on the channel, we've gained 24.7%. Do I think there is more upside? Absolutely. If we look at the daily chart, which is one of the topics or one of the points that I discussed on Facebook and why I believe that we're going to see a strong recovery to these previous 322 levels from basically 233 is because of this gap right here, right? So do we have a lot more upside? I think so, absolutely. I would say we still have approximately 37% profit potential still left. So as far as, is it a good buy right now? Because we've seen so much push to the upside, right? I don't necessarily think it's a bad buy or a bad investment. It really just comes down to your timeline, right? Are you trying to invest in this for a couple of weeks, or are you okay with it? Are you okay with holding this for a month, or are you trying to turn a quick profit tomorrow, right? So if you're trying to turn a quick profit tomorrow, you might want to wait for a second pullback like we saw right here. When we became super overbought, look at the RSI turned red, we became overbought, and we had a little bit of a pullback to this 50-day simple moving average. And then from there, we saw another push. Again, we're basically very overbought. And so this can pull back a little bit just to retest and validate that simple moving average. So that could be a much better buying point. However, if you have a timeline of about a month or a couple of weeks and you don't really care, or you don't want to have a hassle with, oh, should I buy, should I sell tomorrow? Should I buy, should I sell? You can invest. This is not financial advice, but this is what I did is I invested in Facebook at 184. I started buying up Facebook when it hit 184. And as it was going up, I was just consistently adding and adding and adding more size to my position. I believe that it's going to hit that 300 plus mark. So in my opinion, I'm in no rush to lock in profits. Do I manage risk? Absolutely. In case something goes bad really quickly, I do have a stop loss in place and I am managing my risk. However, I'm not looking for those small little pullbacks. I don't really care for them because this is a longer term play for me. This is more of a swing play for me rather than a day trade. Can you day trade this? Absolutely. However, the setup right now isn't ideal, I wouldn't say, for, tomorrow profits are guaranteed. You know what I mean? Just because we are overbought. However, this is a blue chip name company. This is a strong company. And do I believe personally that this is going to go above 300? Absolutely. And if we do continue to see the market continuing to recover as we have been seeing, I do anticipate that this is going to easily push through 300, if not higher, probably higher. So Facebook is definitely on the list. It's going to be on the list probably for the next week to 2 weeks. As long as we're pushing, as long as the market's strong, this is definitely going to be one on the watch list. And like I said, manage your risk. So when it does pull back, you do lock in the profit margin that you've established already. We did break above that 180-day simple moving average. We're holding above all of the moving averages, 50, 180-day, 200, the 100 as well. And we're holding above the EMA as well. And we're just breaking through these resistance levels. So in my opinion, this is a very, very strong name that has a lot of margin to the upside. And I don't see this thing going, any lower than 184 for sure. So if you guys are worried about the price dropping, just pay attention to the SPY. Like I said, the SPY is going to be your guide, right? Because if the SPY is pulling back, we're going to see a little bit of pullback in Facebook. Even though that last time that we saw the SPY pulling back, we saw the SPY pull back significantly more than Facebook pulled back. We saw a little bit of a pullback on Facebook, but then we ended up seeing a nice push to the upside right after. So in my opinion, Facebook is a very, very safe play. The next stock that we're going to be looking at is going to be MU. So MU, the reason this one is on our watch list this week, we came back down, pulled back to the support level right here at 74, and we are starting to break above that 100-day simple moving average. We're breaking above the exponential moving average, and we're pushing to break the 50-day simple moving average. The EMA is looking very good, or the RSI, sorry, is looking very good. We did come down to these oversold levels, and we are starting to push to the upside. So in my opinion, I do see a margin up about 10.9% to about 85.71. That's where I'd start looking to lock in profits. Can it go higher? Possibly. But because this is a resistance level, that's where I'd be looking to lock in profits on MU. And so the setup is there. As long as we break above the exponential moving average, which is this blue line, and we hold above it, I do see us pushing to that 85.71 level where I would be locking in profits. So that's why I'm paying attention to MU. MACD starting to curve. RSI, we're not super overbought, not super oversold, but we are starting to push above 50, which is indicating that momentum. MU, that was MU. We're going to be looking at WBA as well. So WBA, this one here, super oversold. This is why this one's catching my eye. We're super oversold, and we're also approaching that -3 standard deviation, which indicates to me that we're potentially going to start seeing a reversal happening. We haven't seen too much of a curve happen here on the MACD. However, this is starting to curve back up to the upside. We went from red to orange. We're starting to see the RSI starting to curve back up to the upside when we've been oversold. And we're definitely at that level of standard deviation that I mentioned earlier. We talked a little bit about it. We're starting to push back up to the upside. Definitely, we're going to be starting to see that bounce. So that's what I'm paying attention to with WBA. Entry is going to be obviously on the break of the EMA. And then where am I going to be looking to take profit? That's going to be most likely around 47.33. So that gives you a margin of about 8.8%. And, you know, just like with anything, right? Can it go higher? Absolutely. The reason I pay attention to these take profit levels is because they act as resistance levels. And when they act as resistance levels, we have a high probability of seeing a pullback happen at that particular level. So that's the reason I would look at these levels as potential take profit levels, right? So from here on out, if we do break above the EMA, I'm going to be looking to make that entry. And then I'm going to be looking to take profit at that 180-day simple moving average, because as you can see, when we came down, try to break up, acted as a resistance, came back down, try to break back up to the upside, it acted as a resistance, acted as a resistance, acted as a resistance, and we ended up seeing a pullback. If we do recover, it's most likely going to act as a resistance again, and we might see another pullback. So that's why that is a take profit zone. So that's that one. And the last one that we're going to be talking about is going to be LAUR. LAUR. And this one here, this is the reason this one caught my eye, is because it's a very, very consistent uptrend pattern, right? So over the months since basically before September of last year, we've just been seeing this hold and bounce on the 180-day simple moving average. Every time we came down, we saw a bounce. Every time we came down to that simple moving average, that 180-day, we saw a bounce. Came back down, saw a bounce. Now we just came back down once again, and currently we are at that 180-day simple moving average. The RSI is looking oversold, right? It's more so on the oversold side, which is indicating that we might start seeing a reversal to the upside. The MACD, we haven't seen the actual moving average convergence happen, but we are starting to see a change of color from red to orange, which is indicating that this is time for me to start paying attention to this, especially with this historic consistent pattern of a push to the upside, right? If you can see that we've just consistently been holding above it, the pattern continuously keeps being the same, right? So when we see a pullback to the downside, to this 180-day moving average, simple moving average, we saw a push up to the upside. We're seeing this pullback down to the 180-day simple moving average, and I anticipate that we're going to see a push to the upside. And every time we end up putting in newer highs, right? So instead of predicting what those newer highs are going to be, let's just assume that we're going to hit that 1325 level. So from current price points to that 1385 level, we're looking at about 11.3%. And so the setup is there. And the reason we're paying attention to this is because of those things, right? So hopefully you guys found some value in this session. Hopefully you guys found some names to be watching this week and throughout April. And if you guys found value, please smash that like button. It helps the channel tremendously. Show some love. And if you guys aren't subscribed, we do these videos every single Monday night. So if you guys aren't subscribed and you guys want to be getting notifications about these videos, make sure to subscribe, and you're going to be notified as soon as these videos drop. So again, hopefully you guys found some value. And if you guys did, I'll see you guys on next week's Stock Talk video.